Grace slammed the basement door shut. Her hands shook as she turned the lock. Behind her, Jonathan Whitmore, a man worth $3 billion, pounded against the steel. "Grace, what the hell are you doing?" Tears ran down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Please, trust me." She ran. Upstairs, a 5-year-old girl was sleeping. A woman was planning her death, and the only person who knew the truth was a maid no one ever noticed. But here's what no one expected: locking that door didn't trap him. It saved his life. Stay until the end, and tell me, what city are you watching from right now? I want to see how far this story travels. The door slammed. The sound echoed through the basement like a gunshot. Jonathan Whitmore spun around, his hand still reaching for the wine rack. The lock clicked. Heavy. Final. "Grace!" His voice bounced off concrete walls. No answer. "Grace!" He rushed to the door, grabbed the handle, pulled. Nothing. He pounded with his fist. "Open this door right now." Silence. Jonathan stepped back, breathing hard. His head throbbed, that familiar ache that had plagued him for weeks. His hands trembled. He pressed them against his thighs to steady himself. This made no sense. Grace was quiet, polite. She barely spoke unless spoken to. She took care of Lily, tucked her in at night, hummed songs until his daughter fell asleep. The idea that she would lock him in his own basement was insane. "Vanessa!" he shouted. "Daniel! Someone!" His voice cracked. The basement swallowed it whole. Jonathan pulled out his phone. No signal. Of course. He'd designed this space himself, climate-controlled, soundproof, built to protect valuable assets. Privacy, security, isolation. Now it felt like a coffin. He slid down against the wall, his legs suddenly weak. That damned dizziness again. The doctors said stress, grief, lack of sleep. Vanessa said he was working too hard. Everyone had an explanation. But sitting alone in the dark, Jonathan Whitmore realized something he hadn't allowed himself to think. He was dying. And no one seemed to know why. 3 months earlier. The funeral was beautiful. That's what everyone said. "Beautiful service, Jonathan." She would have loved the flowers. "You're so strong." Jonathan stood at the grave and felt nothing. Not grief, not anger. Just empty. Like someone had scooped out his insides and left the shell standing. Catherine was gone. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of building a life together. 15 years of her laugh at breakfast, her hand on his shoulder during hard days, her voice reading bedtime stories to Lily. Gone in 3 seconds. A drunk driver. A red light. A collision that crushed metal and bone and everything Jonathan thought he knew about the world. Lily tugged his hand. "Daddy, when is Mommy coming back?" Jonathan looked down at his daughter. 5 years old, blonde curls. Her mother's eyes. "She's not coming back, sweetheart." Lily's face crumpled. "But I didn't say goodbye." Jonathan knelt in the grass, pulled her close, and for the first time in 3 days he cried. Not for himself, for her. For the life she'd never have. For the questions she'd ask that he couldn't answer. "I know, baby, I know." That night, alone in the master bedroom, Jonathan stared at the ceiling until dawn. The bed felt too big. The house felt too quiet. Success, money, power, none of it mattered anymore. He had everything, and he had nothing. Vanessa appeared 6 weeks later. Jonathan was at a charity gala, the kind of event Catherine used to drag him to, insisting they give back, stay connected. Remember where they came from. He went alone now because his assistant said it would look bad if he disappeared completely. He stood near the bar, nursing a drink he didn't want, counting minutes until he could leave. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." He turned. A woman in a black dress. Dark hair. Green eyes that seemed to see right through him. "That obvious," he said. She smiled. "Only to someone who feels the same way." Her name was Vanessa Clark, 34. Worked in nonprofit management. Lost her fiancé 2 years ago, car accident, just like Catherine. She understood grief. She didn't try to fix it or explain it away. She just sat with it. They talked for 2 hours. Jonathan went home that night and slept for the first time in weeks. "Daddy, I like her." Lily was sitting on the kitchen counter swinging her legs while Jonathan made breakfast. It had been 2 months since the gala. Vanessa had come to dinner 3 times now. "You do?" Jonathan asked. "She reads stories good. Not as good as Mommy, but good." Jonathan's chest tightened. That's great, sweetheart. Is she going to live with us?" He paused, spatula in hand. "Would you be okay with that?" Lily thought about it seriously, the way only children can. "I think Mommy would want you to be happy," she said finally. "You've been sad for a long time." Jonathan set down the spatula, walked over, lifted his daughter into his arms. "When did you get so smart?" Lily grinned. "I was born smart." He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. That afternoon, he called Vanessa. "I want you to move in." Silence on the other end. "Jonathan, are you sure it's only been—" "I'm sure." 3 weeks later, she had a key. A month after that, she had a ring. Everyone warned him it was too fast. His lawyer, his business partner Marcus, even his own mother who'd flown in from Florida specifically to voice her concerns. "You don't know this woman," she said. "Catherine's barely been gone a year." "I know enough," Jonathan replied. "Do you, or do you just know what she wants you to see?" Jonathan ended the conversation. His mother flew home. They didn't speak for 6 weeks. He told himself it didn't matter. He wasn't being reckless. He was being decisive. There was a difference. Vanessa understood him. She understood Lily. She understood loss. That was enough. Grace arrived 3 weeks after the wedding. The previous housekeeper had quit suddenly, family emergency. She'd claimed, though she couldn't look Jonathan in the eye when she said it. Vanessa handled the replacement. "Her name is Grace Thompson, 32. Excellent references. She's perfect." Jonathan glanced at the resume on the kitchen counter. "You've already interviewed her." "I didn't want to burden you with the details." Vanessa kissed his cheek. "Trust me." He did. Grace showed up the next morning. A black woman, average height, quiet demeanor. She wore simple clothes and kept her eyes down when she spoke. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Whitmore." "Call me Jonathan." "I'd prefer Mr. Whitmore, sir, if that's all right." He shrugged. "Whatever makes you comfortable." She nodded once and got to work. Within an hour, Jonathan forgot she was there. That was Grace's gift. Invisibility. She moved through the house like a ghost, cleaning, organizing, preparing meals. She never interrupted. Never asked questions. Never drew attention to herself. But she watched. Jonathan didn't notice. Vanessa did. The first time Grace saw the truth, she almost convinced herself she was wrong. It was a Tuesday evening 3 weeks into her employment. Jonathan had just left for a business dinner. Vanessa stood at the kitchen window watching his car pull away. Grace was wiping down the counters. The moment the car disappeared, Vanessa's face changed. The warmth drained away. Her smile flattened. Her eyes went cold. She turned and looked at Grace. "You can stop now," she said. "He's gone." Grace's hand froze mid-wipe. "Ma'am?" Vanessa walked toward her slowly. "I know what you're doing. Watching, listening, trying to figure things out." She stopped inches away. "Let me make this simple. You're the help. Your job is to clean, cook, and stay out of my way. Understood?" Grace lowered her eyes. "Yes, ma'am." Vanessa smiled, that perfect, practiced smile that Jonathan loved. "Good girl." She walked away without another word. Grace stood alone in the kitchen, her heart pounding. She'd worked in wealthy households before, She knew how some people treated staff. But this was different. The mask had slipped, and Grace had seen what was underneath. "Grace, can you read me a story?" Lily stood in the doorway of the kitchen clutching a stuffed rabbit. It was past her bedtime. Vanessa was supposed to have tucked her in an hour ago. "Where's your stepmother, sweetie?" Lily shrugged. She said she was tired. Grace dried her hands. "Let me check with her first, okay?" She walked to the master bedroom, knocked softly. "Mrs. Whitmore, Lily's asking for a bedtime story." "Then read her one." Vanessa's voice came through the door, irritated. "That's what we pay you for." Grace paused. "Of course, ma'am." She returned to Lily, took her small hand, and led her upstairs to the pink bedroom with the canopy bed. "Which story tonight?" Lily climbed under the covers. "The one about the princess who saves the night." Grace smiled. "Again. It's my favorite. Mommy used to read it." Grace found the book on the shelf, worn dog-eared, clearly read 100 times. She sat on the edge of the bed and began. "Once upon a time in a kingdom far away." Lily was asleep before the princess found her sword. Grace closed the book and looked at the child. So small, so trusting, so unaware of the danger living under the same roof. That night, Grace made a decision. She would watch more carefully. She would listen more closely. And if anything threatened this child, she would act, no matter the cost. Jonathan's health began failing 6 weeks after the wedding. It started with headaches, dull aches that throbbed behind his eyes, especially in the mornings. He blamed screen time. Long hours reviewing contracts, studying market reports, managing the empire he'd built from nothing. Then came the dizziness. "You okay?" Marcus asked during a lunch meeting. "You look pale." Jonathan waved him off. "Didn't sleep well." "You never sleep well anymore. Maybe see a doctor." "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. His hands started trembling, small tremors that made it hard to hold a pen. He dropped his coffee mug twice in 1 week. The second time it shattered on the kitchen floor, and he stood there staring at the pieces like he didn't recognize them. Vanessa appeared behind him. "Darling, you're working too hard." "I'm not." "Shh." She pressed a finger to his lips. "Let me take care of you." She led him to the couch, brought him tea, sat beside him while he sipped it. The tea had a strange aftertaste, bitter metallic, but Vanessa said it was a special blend. Good for stress. "You need to rest more," she said, stroking his hair. "Delegate. Let Marcus handle the day-to-day." Jonathan nodded weakly. "Maybe you're right." "I'm always right." She kissed his forehead. "Now drink your tea." He drank. Grace saw everything. She saw Jonathan grow weaker while Vanessa grew bolder. She saw the bottles in the medicine cabinet, 2 identical labels, but one was lighter than the other. She saw Vanessa dispose of empty capsules in the trash, always wrapped in tissues, always buried deep. She saw Jonathan struggle to climb the stairs while his wife stood nearby scrolling through her phone, barely looking up. One morning, Grace checked on him in the study. He was slumped in his chair, staring at nothing. "Mr. Whitmore, can I bring you anything?" He looked up slowly. His skin was gray, dark circles under his eyes. The tremor in his hands was constant now. "I'm fine, Grace. Just tired." "Have you seen a doctor, sir?" He smiled weakly. "Everyone keeps asking me that. Vanessa made an appointment for next week. She thinks it's just exhaustion." "And what do you think?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I think something's wrong with me. Really wrong. But I don't know what." Grace wanted to scream, wanted to grab him by the shoulders and shake him until he saw what she saw. But she couldn't. Not yet. She had no proof, just suspicion. "I hope you feel better soon, sir." She left the study with her heart pounding. That night she Googled symptoms of heavy metal poisoning until 3 a.m. Lily's birthday party changed everything. Jonathan insisted on being there. He could barely stand, but he refused to miss his daughter turning 5. Vanessa helped him to the dining room, her arm around his waist, her smile wide for the guests. "He's been under so much stress," she explained to concerned faces. "The company, the grief. You understand." Everyone understood. Everyone except Grace. The party was small, a few of Lily's friends from preschool, their parents Marcus and his wife. Balloons, cake, streamers. Lily wore a princess crown and laughed while opening presents. Jonathan watched from his chair at the head of the table, his hands wrapped around a glass of water to hide the shaking. "Daddy, look, a unicorn." He smiled. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Can you help me open the next one?" Jonathan started to stand, and then he collapsed. Not completely, not dramatically. He caught himself on the table, knocking over a glass. Water spilled across the white tablecloth. Guests gasped. "Jonathan!" Vanessa screamed, rushing to his side. "Someone call an ambulance!" "No, no!" Jonathan waved weakly. "I'm fine. Just stood up too fast." "You're not fine. You nearly fainted." "I'm fine." The party ended early. Guests made excuses and left with worried glances. Lily cried because she hadn't finished opening her presents. Vanessa took Jonathan upstairs to rest. Grace cleaned up alone. She moved through the dining room slowly, picking up wrapping paper, stacking plates. Her mind raced. This wasn't stress. This wasn't grief. This was something else. She remembered her mother's stories from the hospital. Years ago, before Grace was born, her mother had worked as a cleaner in a county hospital. She'd seen things. Patients who came in healthy and left in bags. Symptoms that mimicked exhaustion until it was too late. Slow poisonings. The kind that don't show up on routine tests. The kind that kill gradually, invisibly, while everyone watches and wonders. Grace's hands shook as she emptied the trash. Something caught her eye, a small bottle wrapped in a napkin buried under cake scraps. She pulled it out. Prescription bottle. Empty. Not Jonathan's name on the label. She memorized every word. That night, Grace didn't sleep. 2 days later, she heard the truth. It was past midnight. The house was dark. Grace had gone downstairs to fetch Lily's blanket, the purple one with the stars, the one she needed to sleep. Voices drifted from near the basement stairs. Grace froze. "That dose tonight was risky." A man's voice, low, familiar. "Relax." Vanessa, calm, confident. "He trusts you more than anyone." Grace pressed herself against the wall. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "What if someone notices?" the man asked. "Who, the maid? She's too stupid to see anything, and everyone else thinks he's just stressed." Grace recognized the voice now. Marcus, Jonathan's best friend, his business partner, the man who'd stood beside him at Catherine's funeral and wept like a brother. "And the child?" Marcus asked. Grace's blood turned to ice. Vanessa paused. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost gentle. "After everything is transferred, accidents happen." Grace stopped breathing. Lily, 5 years old, asleep upstairs, unprotected. They were going to kill her. After they killed Jonathan, they were going to murder a child. Grace backed away slowly, silently. 1 step. 2. 3. Her foot caught on the carpet. She stumbled, caught herself against the wall. The voices stopped. "Did you hear that?" Marcus whispered. "It's nothing. This house makes noise." Grace didn't wait. She moved quickly, quietly up the stairs, down the hallway, into her small room in the servants' quarters. She locked the door and pressed her back against it, trembling. Her mind raced. She needed proof. She needed time. She needed to protect Lily. But how Jonathan trusted Vanessa completely. He trusted Marcus completely. If Grace accused them without evidence, she'd be fired or worse. And then no one would be left to watch over Lily. She sat on her bed in the dark, thinking. By morning, she had a plan. The next 2 days were torture. Grace watched Jonathan grow weaker. She watched Vanessa play the concerned wife. She watched Marcus visit with false sympathy, asking about Jonathan's health, while secretly plotting his death. And she watched Lily. The child had no idea. She played with her dolls, asked for stories, complained that Daddy was too tired to play with her. "He'll feel better soon," Grace told her. "Promise?" Grace's voice caught. "I promise." She gathered evidence quietly. Photos of the medicine bottles, screenshots of Vanessa's strange schedule, notes about every symptom she observed. She hid everything in a folder on her phone. It wasn't enough. Nothing would be enough unless she acted. The opportunity came on a Thursday afternoon. Jonathan announced he wanted to show Marcus his wine collection. The basement. Soundproof. Isolated. Private. Grace's stomach dropped. This was it. She didn't know exactly what they planned. Maybe another dose. Maybe something faster. But she knew that if Jonathan went down there alone with Marcus, he might not come back up. She had seconds to decide. Jonathan walked toward the basement stairs. Marcus followed. Grace moved. She grabbed the door handle just as Jonathan stepped inside. He turned confused. "Grace, what are you—" She shoved him, hard. He stumbled forward deeper into the basement, and she slammed the door. Her hands shook as she turned the lock. The click echoed through the hallway. Jonathan's fist hit the steel. "Grace, what the hell are you doing?" Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Please, please trust me." She ran. Behind her, Jonathan's voice faded into the soundproof walls. Above her, Vanessa's footsteps stopped cold. Grace didn't slow down. She had to reach Lily. She had to keep her safe. Everything else could wait. Grace's feet pounded against the hardwood floor. Her breath came in sharp gasps. Behind her, she could hear Vanessa's heels clicking slow at first, then faster. "Grace." She didn't answer. She took the stairs two at a time, her hand gripping the railing so hard her knuckles went white. "Grace, what did you do?" Lily's room was at the end of the hall. Pink door, butterfly stickers, a child's sanctuary that might become a tomb if Grace didn't move fast enough. She reached the door, threw it open, and stepped inside. Lily sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes. "Grace, what's happening?" "We're playing a game, sweetheart." Grace's voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. "A hiding game. We need to be very, very quiet. Like hide and seek." "Exactly like that." Grace locked the door. Then she pushed the dresser a heavy oak piece that weighed more than she did inch by inch until it blocked the entrance. "We're going to hide in here and no one can find us." Lily clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter. "Is Daddy playing too?" Grace's heart cracked. Daddy's hiding somewhere else. We'll find him later." "Promise." "I promise." Footsteps stopped outside the door. Then a knock. Soft, gentle. Grace. Vanessa's voice was honey-sweet. "Is everything all right in there?" Grace pulled Lily into her arms and pressed a finger to her lips. The child nodded, eyes wide. "Grace, I know you're scared. I don't know what's gotten into you, but we can talk about this." A pause. "Jonathan is very worried. He's asking for you." Silence. Vanessa knocked again, harder this time. "Open the door, Grace." Nothing. "I said open this door." The sweetness was gone now. Vanessa's voice had turned cold sharp, the same voice Grace had heard in the kitchen that first night. The real voice. "If you don't open this door right now, I'm calling the police. I'll tell them you've kidnapped my stepdaughter. I'll tell them you've had a mental breakdown. Is that what you want?" Grace held Lily tighter. The child whimpered. "Shh," Grace whispered. "It's okay. I've got you." More footsteps. Heavier this time. "Marcus, what's going on?" His voice was muffled through the door. She locked herself in with the girl. "What? Why would she?" "I don't know. Maybe she heard something. Maybe she's just crazy. Vanessa's voice dropped lower, but Grace could still hear. We need to get her out of there. And Jonathan, he's not going anywhere. The basement's sealed. No signal. He'll keep until we figure this out. Grace closed her eyes. She'd been right. They weren't worried about Jonathan escaping. They were worried about her. Marcus rattled the door handle. Grace, this is ridiculous. Open up. She didn't answer. Listen to me. His voice shifted warm now, reasonable, the voice of a trusted friend. I know things have been stressful around here. Jonathan's been sick, everyone's on edge. Whatever you think you saw or heard, I'm sure there's an explanation. Grace bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. Just come out and we can talk about it. No one's angry. We're just concerned about Lily. You're concerned about Lily? The words ripped out of Grace before she could stop them. Is that what you call it? Silence. Then Vanessa laughed. A short, brittle sound that echoed through the door. So you did hear us. I heard everything. More silence. Grace imagined them exchanging looks, calculating, planning, deciding what to do with the maid who knew too much. Grace. Vanessa's voice was different now, stripped of pretense. Let me explain something to you. You're a housekeeper, nobody. You have no money, no connections, no power. If you go to the police with some wild story about poison and murder plots, who do you think they'll believe? Me, a respected philanthropist, married to one of the wealthiest men in the state? Or you, a hired domestic with a history of, well, let's just say your background isn't spotless. Grace's blood chilled. What do you know about my background? I know everything. I make it my business to know everything about the people who work in my house. Vanessa's voice curled with satisfaction. Your mother died in a mental institution, didn't she? Paranoid delusions? Saw conspiracies everywhere. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? Grace's eyes burned. Her mother had been sick, yes. But she hadn't been wrong. She'd seen the truth about people, the ugly hidden truth that everyone else refused to acknowledge. And in the end, no one believed her either. My mother was a good woman, Grace said quietly. Your mother was a lunatic. And that's exactly what you'll look like when this is over. The crazy maid who locked a grieving father in his own basement and held his daughter hostage. The headlines write themselves. Lily tugged Grace's sleeve. Grace, I'm scared. I know, baby. I know. Grace stroked her hair, fighting to keep her voice calm. Just a little longer. What's happening? Why is Vanessa angry? She's not angry, sweetie. She's just confused. Confused about what? Grace looked at the child, those innocent eyes, that trusting face, and made a decision. Lily, I need to tell you something important. Your daddy is a good man, and there are some people who want to hurt him. Bad people who pretend to be nice. Lily's lip trembled. Like in the stories, like the witch who pretends to be a princess. Exactly like that. Is Vanessa a witch? The question hung in the air. Outside, the voices had gone quiet. Grace wondered if they were listening. I don't know what she is, Grace said honestly. But I know she's dangerous. And I know we need to stay in here until help comes. Who's going to help us? Grace pulled out her phone. Still no signal. Vanessa must have done something to the Wi-Fi, the cell boosters, something. But there had to be a way. There was always a way. I'm going to figure that out, she said. I promise. Down the hall, footsteps retreated. Grace heard Vanessa and Marcus talking in low, urgent voices, but she couldn't make out the words. They were planning something. She was sure of it. She looked around the room. Pink walls, princess posters, a window that faced the backyard too high to jump, no way to climb down safely with a child. The door was solid oak, reinforced after Catherine had insisted on safety upgrades throughout the house. It would hold. For now. Grace pulled Lily onto her lap and held her close. The child's heart beat fast against her chest, a hummingbird's rhythm, fragile and frightened. "Grace? Yes, sweetheart? Is my daddy going to be okay?" Grace closed her eyes. The basement was soundproof. No signal. Jonathan was trapped down there, probably still pounding on the door, probably getting weaker by the minute. "Your daddy is strong," she said. "He's going to be just fine." She prayed it wasn't a lie. In the basement, Jonathan stopped pounding. His hands ached. His head throbbed. The familiar dizziness was back, that spinning, falling sensation that had plagued him for weeks. He pressed his palms against his eyes and tried to think. Grace had locked him in. Grace. The quiet maid who took care of Lily, who never raised her voice, who moved through the house like a shadow. Why? His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, surprised. One bar of signal flickering, unstable, but there. A text message. From Grace. "If you trust me, don't drink anything down there. Don't open the door. I'll explain everything." Jonathan stared at the screen. His vision blurred. The words swam. Another message came through. "They're poisoning you. And after you, they're coming for Lily." His hand trembled. Not from weakness this time, from something else, something cold spreading through his chest. He typed back, his fingers clumsy on the screen. "Who is they?" The response came seconds later. "Vanessa, Marcus. I heard them planning. 2 nights ago. The basement stairs. They didn't know I was there." Jonathan's legs gave out. He slid down the wall, landing hard on the concrete floor. His phone nearly slipped from his grip. This was insane. Vanessa loved him. She'd cared for him through his illness, held his hand, brought him tea every morning. Tea. That bitter aftertaste. The special blend she insisted on. Jonathan's stomach lurched. He tasted bile at the back of his throat. "What did you hear exactly?" He waited. The signal bar flickered. Disappeared. Came back. Grace's response arrived in fragments. "Marcus said the dose was risky. Vanessa said you trust him. He asked about Lily. She said, after everything is transferred, accidents happen." Jonathan dropped the phone. His daughter. His baby girl. The only thing left of Catherine. The only reason he got out of bed in the morning. They were going to kill her. He grabbed the phone again, typing frantically. "Where is Lily now?" "With me. Locked in her room. They can't get to her." Relief flooded through him, brief burning, immediately replaced by fear. "Grace, listen to me. Vanessa controls this house, the security systems, the phones, everything. If she finds out, you know." The signal died. The message hung unsent. Jonathan hurled the phone against the wall. It clattered to the floor, screen cracked but still glowing. He pushed himself to his feet, swaying. The dizziness was worse now. How long had she been poisoning him? Weeks, months since the beginning. He thought about their first meeting at the gala. Her warm smile. Her understanding eyes. The way she'd known exactly what to say. Exactly how to fill the hollow space Catherine left behind. Had any of it been real? Jonathan moved to the door, pressed his ear against the cold metal. Nothing. Soundproof worked both ways. He had to get out. Had to get to Lily. Had to. His knees buckled. He caught himself on a wine rack, bottles rattling. He was too weak. Whatever poison they had been feeding him, it was working. His body was failing him just when he needed it most. Jonathan slumped against the rack and closed his eyes. Please, he thought. Please, let Grace keep her safe. Upstairs, Vanessa paced the living room. Her heels clicked against marble, with every step a metronome of rage. "This is a disaster," Marcus said. He stood by the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. "If she talks, she won't talk." Vanessa stopped pacing. "She can't. We control the narrative." "How?" She locked herself in with the girl. She probably has evidence. Photos, recordings. And who will she show them to? Vanessa turned to face him. The police. With what? A phone that can't connect to anything outside this house. By the time anyone responds, we'll have our story straight. Which is... Vanessa smoothed her dress, composing herself. The maid had a breakdown. A history of mental illness. Her mother died in an institution. Did you know that? She became obsessed with Lily, developed delusions about us, and when we tried to intervene, she snapped. Locked Jonathan in the basement, barricaded herself with the child. She smiled. Tragic, terrifying, completely believable. Marcus didn't look convinced. And Jonathan? He's not going to go along with that. Jonathan will be dead by morning. The words hung in the air. Marcus flinched. We weren't supposed to move this fast. Plans change. Vanessa walked to the bar, poured herself a glass of wine. The maid forced our hand. We adapt. That's what smart people do. But the timeline, the transfers aren't complete yet. If he dies now, there'll be an investigation, autopsies, questions. Let them investigate. Vanessa sipped her wine. They'll find a man weakened by grief who suffered a tragic cardiac event. The symptoms are consistent. The doctors have been watching him decline for weeks. Everyone knows he's been unwell. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. And the girl. Vanessa didn't answer immediately. She stared at the wine in her glass, tilting it, watching the light catch the deep red. Accidents happen, she said finally. Children are careless. A fall down the stairs, a slip in the bathtub. These things occur. Jesus, Vanessa. Don't. Her voice turned sharp. Don't pretend you have a conscience now. You signed on for this. You knew what it would take. I knew we were going to redirect some assets. Make Jonathan think certain investments had failed. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. Vanessa set down her glass. That's different. You were happy to take your cut, happy to skim millions from a dying man's empire. You just didn't want to get your hands dirty. Marcus said nothing. Well, guess what? Your hands are already dirty. The moment you started helping me dose him, you became an accessory to murder. So either you help me clean up this mess, or you go down with me. Your choice. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Marcus nodded. What do you need me to do? Keep an eye on the bedroom door. Make sure she doesn't try to escape. I need to think. He moved toward the stairs. Stopped. Turned back. What about the phones? The landline. If she manages to... The landlines are cut. The cell signal is jammed. I handled it before you arrived. Vanessa picked up her wine again. She's trapped. They both are. Marcus climbed the stairs without another word. Vanessa stood alone in the living room, drinking her wine, calculating. The maid was a problem. But problems could be solved. They always could if you were willing to do what needed to be done. In the bedroom, Grace held Lily close and waited. The child had finally stopped crying. She lay against Grace's chest, thumb in her mouth, eyes half closed. Exhausted, scared, but safe. For now. Grace's phone was useless. No signal, no Wi-Fi, nothing. She'd tried every app, every trick she knew. The house was locked down tight. But there had to be another way. She looked at Lily's room. The child's tablet sat on the nightstand, pink case covered in unicorn stickers. Grace grabbed it, powered it on. No Wi-Fi. She tried the emergency function. Nothing. Think, she whispered to herself. Think. The window. Could she signal someone outside? A neighbor, a passerby? She crossed to the window and looked out. The backyard was dark. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away, hidden behind trees and hedges. No one would see her. The front of the house, then. But that window faced the hallway. She'd have to unlock the door. Grace looked at the dresser blocking the entrance. She'd moved it alone, fueled by adrenaline. Could she move it back? Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy. Deliberate. Marcus. Grace. His voice came through the door. I'm going to sit out here for a while, just to make sure everyone's okay? She didn't respond. You know this can't last forever. Eventually you'll have to come out. Eventually, Lily will need food, water, a bathroom. What then? Grace's jaw tightened. He was right. She couldn't stay here indefinitely. But she couldn't leave either. The moment she opened that door, they would take Lily. And then, no. She couldn't think about that. We can work this out, Marcus continued. Whatever you think you heard, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Vanessa gets worked up sometimes. She says things she doesn't mean. Like planning to kill a child. The words escaped before Grace could stop them. Silence. Then Marcus laughed. Low, bitter, like a man caught in a lie he'd been telling himself. You really did hear everything, didn't you? Every word. Then you understand why we can't let you leave this house. Grace's blood ran cold. Marcus, listen to me. She moved closer to the door, lowered her voice. You don't have to do this. Whatever she's promised you, it's not worth it. Turn back now. Help me get Jonathan out of that basement, and we can... Can what? Go to the police, explain how I've been helping poison my best friend for 3 months. Explain how I was going to take 40% of his empire once he was gone. Marcus's voice cracked. It's too late for me, Grace. It was too late the moment I said yes. It's never too late. You don't know that. A thud against the door, Marcus leaning against it, sliding down. You don't know anything about me. About what I've done. About why I did it. Grace pressed her hand against the door, feeling the vibration of his weight on the other side. Then tell me. Silence. Then slowly Marcus began to speak. I was Jonathan's best friend for 20 years. 20 years. We built that company together. I was there from the beginning, the late nights, the failed pitches, the years of scraping by on nothing. And when it finally took off, when the money started flowing, you know what happened? What? He got rich. I got a salary. Marcus laughed bitterly. A good salary. A generous salary. Enough to live comfortably while he bought mansions and private jets and everything Catherine ever wanted. And he never understood why I was angry. You're my partner, he'd say. You're family. But family doesn't mean much when your share of the pie is 1% while his is 99%. Grace listened, her heart pounding. Vanessa understood. She saw it right away, the resentment, the bitterness. She knew how to use it. Marcus paused. She knows how to use everyone. So walk away, right now. Help me save them and spend the rest of my life in prison? Marcus's voice hardened. No. I've made my choice. Now you have to make yours. What does that mean? It means you have until morning. After that, we're coming in. One way or another. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Grace stood frozen, her hand still pressed against the door. Until morning. That was all the time she had. She looked at Lily sleeping fitfully on the bed. She looked at her phone, dark and useless. She looked at the window, the door, the walls closing in around her. There had to be a way. There was always a way. She just had to find it. Grace moved quietly around the room, searching. In the closet, she found old toys, picture books, a broken flashlight. In the dresser, clothes and blankets. Under the bed, dust bunnies and a single sock. Nothing useful. Then her eyes fell on the bookshelf. Lily's favorite books arranged by color. And behind them, partially hidden, a baby monitor. Old-fashioned, the kind that used radio frequencies instead of Wi-Fi. Grace grabbed it, turned it over. Battery-powered, charged. Her heart raced. These things had a range of maybe 1,000 feet. Not enough to reach the neighbors, but enough to reach the basement. If Jonathan still had his phone. If the signal came back even for a moment. If she could somehow sync this monitor to reach him. It was a long shot. But it was all she had. Grace held the monitor in her hands and got to work. In the living room, Vanessa made a phone call. Not on her cell, the jammers affected everyone. On a satellite phone she kept locked in her safe for emergencies. "It's me," she said. "We have a problem." She explained the situation quickly. The maid, the basement, the child. The voice on the other end was calm. "What do you need?" "Insurance. If this falls apart, I need somewhere to disappear." "That will cost you." "I know." "The funds will need to be transferred tonight." Vanessa hesitated. The money was supposed to come from Jonathan's estate after. But there were accounts she could access now. Emergency funds. Hidden investments Marcus didn't know about. "It'll be done within the hour." "Then you have nothing to worry about. If things go south, we'll have a plane waiting." Vanessa ended the call and stared at the phone in her hand. Backup plans. That's what separated successful people from failures. Always have an exit. Always have a way out. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. 20 years ago, she'd been nobody. A girl from a small town with big dreams and no money. She'd clawed her way up through charm and manipulation, through marriages and divorces, through lies that built on lies until she couldn't remember what was real anymore. And then she'd met Jonathan. Rich, grieving, vulnerable. The perfect mark. It should have been easy. Marry him. Wait for his health to fail. Naturally, he was already showing signs of strain, the stress of losing his wife, then inherit everything. But Catherine's daughter complicated things. That child stood between Vanessa and billions of dollars. A walking, talking liability. Marcus had suggested the poison, something slow, something undetectable. They'd started 3 months ago, right after the wedding. Everything was on schedule, until the maid. Vanessa poured herself another glass of wine. The maid. A nobody. A domestic. And somehow she'd seen through everything. It didn't matter. By morning it would be over. Jonathan would have a fatal cardiac event. The maid would be blamed for his distress. And Lily. Vanessa took a long drink. Lily would have an accident. Tragic, but unsuspicious. A fall. A slip. These things happened all the time. By tomorrow night, Vanessa would be a wealthy widow. By next week, she'd be in the Maldives reinventing herself once again. She just had to get through the next 12 hours. How hard could it be? In the bedroom, Grace held her breath. The baby monitor crackled. Static. Interference. Nothing clear. She adjusted the frequency. Tried again. More static. "Come on," she whispered. "Come on." Lily stirred on the bed. "Grace, what are you doing?" "Trying to find your daddy." Lily sat up, rubbing her eyes. "With the baby talkie." "Something like that." Grace adjusted again. The static shifted. And then a voice. Faint, garbled, but unmistakably human. "Hear me. Is anyone?" "Jonathan." Grace grabbed the monitor, pressed it to her ear. "Jonathan. Jonathan, can you hear me?" Silence. Static. Then, "Grace, is that?" "Yes, yes, it's me. I'm in Lily's room. We're safe." The connection wavered. Words cut in and out. "Basement can't get out, signal keeps." I know you're trapped. But I need you to listen to me." Grace spoke quickly, afraid she'd lose him any second. "Vanessa is planning to kill you tonight," she said, "by morning. You can't eat or drink anything down there, do you understand?" Static. "Jonathan." "Understand what about Lily?" "She's with me. She's safe. I won't let anything happen to her." More static. The connection fading. "Believe you." Jonathan's voice broke through. "Should have seen trusted you from—" "Stay alive," Grace said. "Just stay alive. I'll find a way to get help." The monitor went dead. Grace held it for a moment longer, then set it down. It wasn't much, but it was something. Jonathan knew the truth now. He was warned, and he knew Lily was protected. Now she just had to figure out how to save them all. The hours crawled by. Lily fell asleep again, curled around her stuffed rabbit. Grace sat by the window watching the darkness outside, thinking. The house was a fortress. No signals in or out. No way to call for help. The door was blocked, but it wouldn't hold forever. Vanessa and Marcus were waiting, planning, preparing. What did she have? A locked door. A sleeping child. A dead phone. A baby monitor that barely worked. And 12 hours until they came for her. Grace pressed her forehead against the cold glass. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Something she'd said near the end when the illness had taken most of her mind, but left strange fragments of clarity. The ones who survive aren't the strongest baby. They're the ones who pay attention, who see what others miss, who act when everyone else freezes. Grace had paid attention. She'd seen. She'd acted. Now she had to survive. She looked at Lily, then at the window, then at the dresser blocking the door. A plan began to form. Risky, desperate, but possible. She just had to wait for the right moment. Downstairs, Vanessa checked her watch. 4 a.m. 3 hours until dawn. Marcus sat on the stairs, head in his hands. He hadn't spoken in over an hour. You should sleep, Vanessa said. I'll watch. I can't sleep. Try. He looked up at her. How do you do it? Do what? Stay so calm. We're about to... He stopped. Couldn't say it. We're about to secure our future. Vanessa walked to him, touched his shoulder. That's all. When it's over, you'll have more money than you ever dreamed. You'll never have to answer to anyone again. Isn't that worth a little discomfort? Marcus stared at her. You really don't feel anything, do you? Vanessa's hand dropped from his shoulder. I feel plenty. I just don't let it control me. She turned away. Now get some rest. We have a long morning ahead. She walked to the window and watched the first gray light creep over the horizon. Soon. It would all be over soon. In the bedroom, Grace made her move. Grace moved the dresser slowly, inch by inch, careful not to make a sound. Her arms burned. Sweat dripped down her forehead. But she kept pushing. Lily slept on oblivious. The plan was simple. Dangerous, but simple. The bathroom connected to Lily's room had a small window barely big enough for a child to fit through. Below it, a trellis covered in dead ivy ran down to the garden shed. From there, the property's east fence bordered the service road. If Grace could get Lily out that window, down the trellis, over the fence, it was insane. A 5-year-old climbing in the dark, running for help alone. But the alternative was worse. Grace had thought it through. Vanessa said they had until morning. That meant they were waiting for what Grace didn't know. Maybe for Jonathan to weaken further. Maybe for the right moment to stage whatever accident they'd planned. If Grace waited with them, she died. Lily died. Jonathan died. If she acted now, there was a chance. She moved to the bed and gently shook Lily's shoulder. Sweetie, wake up. Lily's eyes fluttered open. Is it morning? Not yet. But I need you to do something very important. Lily sat up, clutching her rabbit. What? Grace knelt beside her, taking her small hands. Remember the hiding game we talked about? I need you to be the bravest girl in the world right now. Can you do that for me? Lily nodded slowly, her eyes wide. Good girl. Grace pointed to the bathroom door. There's a window in there. It's small, but you can fit through it. Outside, there's something like a ladder made of sticks. You climb down very carefully. Then you run to the fence at the back of the garden. You climb over just like you climb the jungle gym at school, and then you run. You run until you find a house with lights on, and you tell them to call 911. Lily's lip trembled. I can't. It's dark. I know, baby. I know it's scary. Grace cupped her face gently. But your daddy needs help, and you're the only one who can get it. Why can't you come? Because I need to stay here. I need to make sure the bad people don't follow you. Grace's voice cracked. Can you be brave for me? For Daddy. Lily looked at her rabbit, then at Grace, then at the bathroom door. Will Daddy be okay? If you do this, yes, he will. Lily took a deep breath. Small, shaky. The breath of a child being asked to carry a weight no child should carry. Okay, she whispered. I'll be brave. Grace pulled her close, holding her tight for just a moment. This little girl, this innocent child, the daughter of a man she barely knew, yet somehow felt responsible for, with every fiber of her being. I love you, Grace whispered. Now go. She led Lily to the bathroom, lifted her onto the sink, and opened the window. Cold air rushed in. The trellis was visible below, old, brittle but sturdy enough. Remember, down the ladder, over the fence. Find a house with lights. Tell them 911. Lily gripped her rabbit in one hand and the windowsill in the other. Grace? Yes. You'll come find me, right? Grace's heart shattered. I promise. Lily climbed out. Grace watched her small form descend the trellis, one hand reaching one hand, clutching that ridiculous stuffed rabbit. She held her breath with every movement, every creak of the old wood. Lily reached the ground, looked up, waved. Grace waved back. Then Lily ran. She disappeared into the darkness, her pink nightgown swallowed by shadows. Grace closed the window and sagged against the wall. Now came the hard part. She walked back into the bedroom, replaced the dresser against the door, and sat down on the bed. Waiting. If Lily made it help, would come in 30 minutes, maybe less. If she didn't. Grace pushed the thought away. She made it. She had to. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Grace's eyes never left the clock. Footsteps in the hallway, getting closer. Grace? Marcus's voice. It's time. She didn't respond. Vanessa wants to talk. She says there's a way out of this. For everyone. Silence. Grace, I'm going to break down this door in 5 minutes. Whatever happens after that is on you. Grace stood, walked to the door. Where's Lily? She asked. What? I said, where's Lily? Is she safe? Is Vanessa with her? Confusion in Marcus's voice. She's in there with you. No, she's not. Silence. Then footsteps running now back down the hall. Vanessa! Vanessa! Grace smiled grimly. The clock was ticking now, for all of them. Downstairs, Vanessa's face went white. What do you mean she's gone? She's not in the room. Marcus was panting, panicked. The maid says, I heard what she said. Vanessa grabbed his arm. The window. Check the bathroom window. They ran up the stairs, Marcus first. He tried the bedroom door, still blocked. He threw his weight against it, once, twice. On the third try, the dresser scraped back enough for him to squeeze through. The room was empty. Bathroom door open. Window ajar. Cold air seeping in. She got her out, Marcus breathed. The girl is gone. Vanessa pushed past him, stuck her head out the window. The trellis. The garden. The fence. How long ago? I don't know. Could be minutes. Could be... Find her. Vanessa's voice was ice. Now! Marcus ran. Vanessa heard him crashing through the house, out the back door into the garden. She turned slowly to face Grace, who stood calmly by the bed. You think you've won? Vanessa said. I think a 5-year-old is going to save her father's life. She's a child, in the dark, alone. She'll get lost. She'll fall. She'll find help. Grace's voice was steady. And when she does, this is all over for you. Vanessa stared at her. Then she laughed, a strange, brittle sound. You know what I love about people like you? You actually believe in happy endings. She stepped closer. Let me tell you how this really ends. I have a plane waiting, offshore accounts, a new identity ready to go. By the time anyone responds to that child's hysterical story, if she even manages to find someone, I'll be gone. The money will be gone. And you'll be here trying to explain how you locked a dying man in his basement and lost his daughter in the woods. You're not going anywhere. Who's going to stop me? You. Vanessa laughed again. You're a maid, a nobody. You have no power, no resources, no... I have a phone full of evidence. Vanessa's laughter died. Pictures, Grace continued. Dates, timestamps. Photos of every pill bottle, every prescription that didn't match. Notes on every symptom Jonathan displayed and when. Recordings of conversations, not the basement one. I wasn't close enough, but enough. Enough for any detective to start asking questions. That phone doesn't work. I jammed... You jammed the signal, not the storage. Grace pulled out her phone, held it up. Everything's saved locally, and I backed it up to the cloud 3 days ago, before you blocked everything. The color drained from Vanessa's face. You're bluffing. Am I? They stared at each other. The clock ticked. Outside, Marcus's shouts echoed across the property. It doesn't matter, Vanessa said finally. Her voice had changed harder now, more desperate. Even if you have evidence, even if that girl finds help, Jonathan is still in that basement, still dying. By the time anyone gets here, then let him out. What? Let him out. Grace stepped forward. Open the basement door, save his life, and maybe you have a chance of walking away from this. Vanessa laughed. You think I'd trust you? You think Jonathan would let me walk away after everything? I think he'd rather have his daughter than revenge. Grace's voice softened. I've watched him these past months. He's a good man. Broken, but good. If you let him live, if you disappear quietly, he might not pursue you. He might just want to forget. And if you're wrong, then at least you tried. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Her eyes flicked to the window, to the door, to Grace. You really believe that, don't you? That there's some path here where everyone survives? I believe there's always a choice. Vanessa shook her head slowly. That's the difference between us. I stopped believing in choices a long time ago. She moved toward the door. Stay here. Don't move. I need to think. She was gone before Grace could respond. Grace stood alone in Lily's room, her heart pounding. She'd bought time, maybe minutes, maybe less. But time for what? In the basement, Jonathan heard the commotion, muffled sounds through the soundproofed walls, footsteps, shouting. Something was happening upstairs. He pushed himself to his feet slower now, his body fighting him with every movement. The weakness had spread to his legs. His vision kept blurring. He'd stopped trying to count the hours. The baby monitor sat on a wine crate beside him, silent since his last contact with Grace. He'd tried it a dozen times since, but the signal never came back. Lily was safe. That's what Grace had said. He clung to that. But for how long? Jonathan moved to the door again, pressed his palms against the cold metal. Vanessa, he shouted. I know you're up there. I know what you did. Nothing. You want the money? Take it, all of it. Just let me see my daughter. Silence. Please. His voice cracked. Please, just let me see Lily. The lock clicked. Jonathan stumbled backward, heart racing. The door swung open. Vanessa stood in the doorway. Her face was pale. Her composure was cracking at the edges, something wild in her eyes that Jonathan had never seen before. Well, she said, you're still alive. Where's Lily? Gone. Vanessa stepped inside. Your precious maid snuck her out a window. She's out there somewhere, probably lost, probably scared, probably. Jonathan lunged. He didn't think, didn't plan, just moved every ounce of strength he had left, channeled into reaching her, stopping her, making her pay. Vanessa sidestepped easily. He was too weak, too slow. He stumbled past her and crashed into the wall. Pathetic, she said softly. Look at you. The great Jonathan Whitmore. Can barely stand. Jonathan pushed himself up, breathing hard. What did you give me? Thallium, slow acting, untraceable in standard tests. She smiled. You've been dying for 3 months, darling. I'm honestly impressed you lasted this long. Why? The word came out broken. I gave you everything. The house, the money. I loved you. Love. Vanessa laughed. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of being saved. The grieving widower rescued by a beautiful woman who understood his pain. It was so easy. So pathetically easy. Jonathan's legs gave out. He slid down the wall, unable to hold himself up anymore. Vanessa crouched in front of him. You want to know the truth? I've done this before. Twice. Different names, different men, same story. Find someone broken. Fix them. Then take everything when they're not looking. She reached out, touched his face gently. You were supposed to be my retirement fund. You and that company you built. Enough money to disappear forever. And Lily? The gentleness vanished. Lily was never part of the plan. She was an obstacle. She's a child. She's an heir. Billions of dollars standing between me and everything I worked for. Vanessa stood. Don't worry. It would have been quick, painless, more than most people get. Jonathan felt something shift inside him. Not strength, he had none left. Something else. Something cold and clear. You're not going to touch her. I'm not going to do anything now. Your maid ruined that. Vanessa moved toward the door. The girl's out there. Help is probably coming. I need to disappear before... No. Vanessa turned. Excuse me. Jonathan pressed his hands against the floor, pushed himself up. Every muscle screamed. Every nerve burned. But he stood. You're not leaving. Jonathan, you can barely walk. Then you'll have to go through me. They stared at each other across the basement, Vanessa by the door, Jonathan swaying on his feet. Neither moved. This is ridiculous, Vanessa said. You can't stop me. I can slow you down. I can make noise. You can die. Vanessa's voice hardened. Right here, right now. I could finish what I started and be gone before anyone arrives. Is that what you want? I want my daughter to be safe. She is safe. She's away from me, which is more than I can say for you. Vanessa reached into her pocket and pulled out a small bottle. Pills. White capsules that looked like the ones Jonathan took every morning. One more dose, she said. That's all it would take. Your heart's already stressed. One more dose and you never wake up. Then do it. Vanessa froze. Do it, Jonathan repeated. Kill me. Right now. Right here. And prove to me everything I believed about you was a lie. Everything was a lie. No. Jonathan shook his head. Not everything. I saw something in you, Vanessa. That first night at the gala. Something real. Something broken that recognized the broken parts of me. You saw what I wanted you to see. Maybe, but you sat with me while I cried about Catherine. You held my hand when the nightmares got bad. You read stories to Lily, even when she rejected you over and over. Jonathan's voice dropped. Some of that was real. I refused to believe none of it was real. Vanessa's hand trembled. The pill bottle shook in her grip. It doesn't matter, she said. Real or not, it's over now. It doesn't have to be. What are you talking about? Jonathan took a step toward her, then another. His legs threatened to buckle, but he kept moving. Walk away, he said. Right now. Leave the country. Disappear. I won't pursue you. I won't press charges. Just let me have my daughter. Let me live. And this ends. Vanessa stared at him. You'd let me go, after everything I did. Lily's safe. That's all that matters. You could die tomorrow from what I gave you. Then I'll die knowing she's okay. Silence stretched between them. The basement felt smaller somehow, the air thicker. Vanessa's hand lowered slowly. The pill bottle slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. You're a fool, she whispered. Probably. I ruined your life. You tried. I would have killed your daughter. Jonathan closed his eyes. But you didn't. When he opened them again, Vanessa was crying. Not theatrical tears, real ones. The first real thing he'd seen from her in months. I don't know how to be what you think I am, she said. I've been pretending so long, I forgot there was anything underneath. Then stop pretending. She looked at him. Really looked. And for one moment, the mask was gone completely. The antidote is in my bathroom, she said quietly. Cabinet behind the mirror. Blue bottle. 3 drops in water every hour for 48 hours. It'll flush the thallium from your system. Jonathan stared at her. Why are you telling me this? Because you're right. Vanessa wiped her eyes. Some of it was real. And I don't want to be the person who kills the only man who ever saw something worth saving in me. She turned and walked out of the basement. Jonathan listened to her footsteps fade, heard the back door open, close, then silence. He stood alone in the basement, swaying on his feet, the pill bottle lying empty on the floor. Upstairs, Grace heard everything. She'd crept down from Lily's room as soon as Vanessa left, followed the sound of voices to the basement stairs, listened through the cracked door. Now she pushed it open fully. Jonathan stood in the middle of the basement, barely upright. Mr. Whitmore. He looked up. His eyes were wet. She's gone. Grace nodded. I heard her car. She's gone. Jonathan's legs finally gave out. Grace rushed forward, caught him before he hit the ground. The antidote, he gasped. She said, her bathroom. Blue bottle. I heard. Don't try to talk. Grace helped him toward the stairs. Can you walk? I don't know. Try. For Lily. Jonathan gritted his teeth and moved. They climbed the stairs together, Grace taking most of his weight, Jonathan forcing his legs to work through sheer willpower. It took forever. Every step was agony. But they made it. Grace led him to the living room, lowered him onto the couch. Stay here, I'll get the antidote. She ran to the master bathroom, found the cabinet, found the blue bottle. Raced back. 3 drops in water, Jonathan said weakly. Every hour. Grace measured carefully, brought the glass to his lips. He drank. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then color began returning to his face. His breathing steadied. Where's Marcus? He asked. Grace looked toward the window. Still looking for Lily. He doesn't know Vanessa left. He'll figure it out. Probably. Jonathan closed his eyes. I should hate her. I should want her arrested, prosecuted, destroyed. He paused. But I just feel tired. Grace sat beside him. You did something incredible down there. You gave her a chance to be human. I don't know if she took it. She told you about the antidote. That's something. Jonathan opened his eyes, looked at Grace, really looked for the first time since she'd started working in his house. Why did you do it? He asked. Why did you risk everything for us? Grace thought about the question, about all the answers she could give. Because someone had to, she said finally, and I was the only one who saw. Before Jonathan could respond, headlights swept across the window. Then more headlights, red and blue flashing lights, sirens. Grace moved to the window and looked out. Police cars, an ambulance, a whole convoy pulling up the driveway. And there in the back of the first car, a small face pressed against the window. Lily. Grace turned to Jonathan, tears streaming down her face. She made it, she breathed. She found help. Jonathan tried to stand, couldn't. fell back against the couch. "Bring her to me," he said. "Please, bring me my daughter." Grace ran to the door. Outside, chaos erupted. Officers spreading across the property. Paramedics rushing toward the house. Marcus being tackled near the garden fence, shouting protests no one listened to. But Grace only saw one thing. A little girl in a pink nightgown clutching a stuffed rabbit running toward her. "Grace!" Grace caught her in her arms and held her tight. "You did it," she whispered. "You brave, beautiful girl. You did it." "I found a house," Lily said breathlessly. "A nice lady called the police. She gave me hot chocolate while we waited." Grace laughed through her tears. "Of course she did." "Where's Daddy?" "Inside. He's waiting for you." Grace carried Lily into the house, set her down gently beside the couch. Jonathan reached for his daughter with trembling arms. Lily climbed into his lap, buried her face against his chest. "I was so scared," she whispered. "But I remembered what Grace said. Be brave, for Daddy." Jonathan held her close. Tears streamed down his face. Tears he didn't try to hide. "You saved me," he said. "Both of you. You saved my life." Grace stood back watching them. Father and daughter, broken and healing. The police would have questions. The doctors would need to examine Jonathan. There would be statements and evidence and a long night ahead. But right now, in this moment, none of that mattered. A maid who noticed too much. A child who ran through the dark. A father who survived because two people refused to look away. That was enough. That was everything. The paramedics arrived. They loaded Jonathan onto a stretcher, Lily refusing to let go of his hand. Grace gave her statement to the first officer on scene, calmly, thoroughly missing nothing. Marcus was led away in handcuffs, still insisting there had been a misunderstanding. No one believed him. The evidence was too clear. As for Vanessa, Grace watched the officers confer near their vehicles. Heard fragments of conversation. "Vehicle spotted heading toward the airport." "Federal alert issued." "Won't get far." Grace hoped they were right. But part of her wondered if Vanessa was already gone, disappeared into another identity, another life, another Mark waiting to be conned. Maybe Jonathan's mercy had been wasted. Or maybe somewhere out there Vanessa was remembering what it felt like to be seen as human. Grace would probably never know. The ambulance doors closed. Jonathan looked out at her through the small window, weak but alive. He raised a hand. A gesture of gratitude, of acknowledgement. Grace raised hers back. Then the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing, carrying the man and his daughter toward safety. Grace stood alone in the driveway. The night was cold. Her clothes were wrinkled. She hadn't slept in almost 24 hours, but she smiled. Because sometimes the ones who saved everything were the ones no one thought to watch. And sometimes that was exactly how it was supposed to be. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Grace sat in the waiting room, her hands wrapped around a paper cup of cold coffee she hadn't touched. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Every few minutes someone in scrubs walked past, and Grace's heart jumped. No news yet. It had been 4 hours since the ambulance brought Jonathan in. 4 hours of waiting, wondering, praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Lily had fallen asleep on the plastic chairs beside her, curled up with her stuffed rabbit still wearing that pink nightgown. A nurse had offered to find her some clothes, but Lily refused to leave Grace's side. "She's attached to you," the nurse had said with a gentle smile. Grace didn't know how to respond to that. A detective approached, middle-aged, tired eyes, a notepad in his hand. Detective Morrison. He'd taken Grace's initial statement at the house, but wanted to follow up. "Ms. Thompson." Grace looked up. "Any word on Mr. Whitmore?" "Still in treatment. The doctors are optimistic, but thallium poisoning is serious. He'll need monitoring for weeks." Morrison sat down across from her. "I have a few more questions if you don't mind." "Of course." "You said you overheard Mrs. Whitmore and Marcus Chen discussing the poisoning. Can you tell me exactly what you heard? Grace closed her eyes, replaying that night. The basement stairs. The voices. The words that had turned her blood to ice. Marcus said the dose that night was risky. Vanessa told him to relax, that Jonathan trusted him more than anyone. Grace's voice was steady, but her hands shook. Then Marcus asked about Lily, about the child. And Mrs. Whitmore's response. She said, "After everything is transferred, accidents happen." Morrison wrote quickly, "And you're certain about these words exactly as stated. I'll never forget them." The detective nodded slowly. "We've arrested Marcus Chen. He's not talking yet, but that might change once his lawyer explains the charges." "What about Vanessa?" Morrison's face tightened. "We tracked her vehicle to a private airfield outside the city. She boarded a charter plane about an hour before we arrived." Grace's stomach dropped. "She's gone." "For now. But we've issued international alerts. Her accounts are frozen. She won't get far." "She's done this before." Grace met his eyes. She told Jonathan. Different names, different men. This wasn't her first time. Morrison leaned forward. "Did she say anything specific? Names, locations?" "No. Just that she'd done it twice before." Grace paused. "She said Jonathan was supposed to be her retirement fund." The detective wrote that down, his jaw tight. "Ms. Thompson, I have to ask, why didn't you come to us sooner, when you first suspected something was wrong?" It was the question Grace had been asking herself for hours. "I had no proof, just suspicions. A woman who changed when her husband left the room. Pills that didn't match prescriptions. Symptoms that looked like stress." She shook her head. Who would believe a maid over the wife of a billionaire? Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You did something most people wouldn't. You acted. A lot of folks would have kept their heads down. Protected their jobs. A child's life was at stake. Still." Morrison stood. "We'll need you to testify when this goes to trial. Are you prepared for that?" Grace looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. "I'll do whatever it takes." The detective nodded once and walked away. An hour later, a doctor appeared. Grace jumped to her feet. "How is he?" The doctor, young, exhausted, still in surgical scrubs, managed a small smile. "Stable. The thallium did significant damage, but we've started chelation therapy. If he continues responding to treatment, he should make a full recovery." Grace's legs nearly gave out. "Thank God." "He's asking for his daughter." The doctor glanced at Lily. "And for you." "Me." He was very specific. "The woman who saved his life. That's what he said." Grace woke Lily gently. The child blinked, confused, then remembered where she was. "Is Daddy okay?" "He's okay, sweetheart. He wants to see you." Lily grabbed Grace's hand and held tight as they followed the doctor through the maze of hospital corridors. Grace tried not to notice the machines, the monitors, the beeping that seemed to come from everywhere. Jonathan's room was at the end of the hall, private, guarded by an officer outside the door. They stepped inside. Jonathan lay in the bed, connected to tubes and wires, his skin still pale, but his eyes open, alert, alive. "Daddy!" Lily ran to him, climbing onto the bed despite the nurse's protests. Jonathan wrapped his arms around her, wincing at the movement, but not letting go. "Hey, princess." His voice was hoarse. "I heard you were very brave." "I climbed out the window," Lily said proudly, "and ran really fast. Grace said I saved your life." Jonathan's eyes found Grace over his daughter's head. "She's right," he said softly. "You both did." Grace stood awkwardly by the door, suddenly unsure of her place. This was a family moment. She was the help. "Grace." Jonathan's voice stopped her from retreating. "Come here, please." She approached the bed slowly. "I don't know how to thank you," Jonathan said. "I don't know if there are words for what you did." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do." He reached for her hand, his grip weak but warm. You saw what no one else saw. You believed it when everyone would have told you to stay quiet. And when it mattered most, you acted. Grace's eyes burned. I just did what anyone... No. Jonathan shook his head. Not anyone. Most people would have looked away. Most people would have protected themselves. You didn't. Lily looked up at her father. Is Grace going to stay with us? The question hung in the air. Jonathan met Grace's eyes. I hope so, if she wants to. Grace thought about everything she'd been through. The fear, the sleepless nights, the moment she'd shoved a dresser against a door and prepared to die protecting a child she'd only known for 3 months. I want to, she said. Lily cheered. Jonathan smiled, the first real smile Grace had seen from him since she'd started working in that house. Then it's settled, he said. You're family now. The word hit Grace like a wave. Family. She hadn't had family since her mother died. Hadn't belonged anywhere since she was 19 years old, bouncing from job to job, city to city, always watching, always on the outside. Family. She didn't know what to do with that, but she held Jonathan's hand a little tighter, and she didn't let go. The next few weeks were a blur. Jonathan remained in the hospital, his body slowly purging the poison that had nearly killed him. Grace split her time between his bedside and caring for Lily at a hotel nearby the mansion was still a crime scene, and neither of them wanted to go back anyway. Lily had nightmares at first. She'd wake up screaming, crying for her father, terrified that the bad people were coming back. Grace held her through every one. I'm here, she'd whisper. No one's going to hurt you, I promise. Gradually, the nightmares faded. Lily started laughing again, playing again, asking endless questions about everything she saw. Grace, why is the sky blue? Grace, do fish sleep? Grace, why do some people pretend to be nice when they're not? That last question stopped Grace cold. She knelt in front of Lily, taking her small hands. Some people are broken inside, she said carefully. They've been hurt, or they never learned how to love properly, so they pretend. They put on masks. Like costumes. Sort of, but the masks look like real faces. That's what makes them hard to spot. Lily thought about this. How do you know if someone's wearing a mask? Grace considered the question. You watch. You pay attention to the little things, how they treat people when no one's looking. What they do when they think it doesn't matter. She paused. And you trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Lily nodded seriously. You saw through Vanessa's mask. Yes. And you saved Daddy. We saved him together. Lily smiled. I like being on a team with you. Grace pulled her into a hug. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Marcus broke 3 days later. Detective Morrison called Grace with the news. He's talking. Giving us everything: names, dates, methods. Apparently Vanessa had a whole network. Associates who helped her disappear husbands and collect inheritances. How many? Grace asked. At least 2 confirmed before Jonathan, maybe more. Morrison's voice was grim. She's been doing this for over a decade. Grace felt sick. And no one ever caught her. The deaths looked natural. Heart attacks, strokes, accidents. Nobody connected them until now. A pause. Your evidence changed everything. Those photos, the timeline you kept, it's the first real documentation anyone's ever had. What happens to Marcus? He'll testify against her in exchange for a reduced sentence, 20 years instead of life. Morrison didn't sound happy about it. But without his testimony, we might never find her. And Vanessa? Still in the wind. She slipped through customs in Mexico before we could catch up. But we're close. She made mistakes, used an old alias, showed up on a security camera. It's only a matter of time. Grace hoped he was right. After she hung up, she went to Jonathan's room and told him everything. He listened quietly, staring at the ceiling. 2 others, he said finally. 2 other men she killed. At least. And I invited her into my home, into my daughter's life. His voice cracked. I was so desperate to fill the hole Catherine left that I didn't see what was right in front of me. Grace sat on the edge of his bed. You were grieving. She exploited that. It's not your fault. Isn't it? Jonathan looked at her. I ignored the warnings. My mother, my lawyer, even Marcus before he was part of it, even he said it was too fast. Marcus was part of it from the beginning. I don't know anymore. I don't know what was real and what wasn't. Jonathan closed his eyes. 20 years. That's how long I've known him. We built the company together. We survived failures together. I was best man at his wedding. His voice dropped. And the whole time he was waiting for the right moment to destroy me. You couldn't have known. No, but I should have paid more attention. He opened his eyes, looked at her intently. That's what you taught me. To pay attention. To see what's actually there, not what you want to see. Grace didn't know how to respond. I've spent my whole life building things. Jonathan continued. Companies, portfolios, a reputation. I thought success was about vision, seeing the big picture, making bold moves. I never realized that the most important things are small, the details, the moments people think don't matter. That's how people like Vanessa operate. They hide in the spaces no one's watching. But you were watching. Jonathan reached for her hand again. Why? What made you different? Grace thought about the question, about her mother, about all the years of watching, listening, surviving on the margins of other people's lives. My mother was a cleaner, she said quietly. Hospitals, offices, hotels. She spent her whole life in rooms where people forgot she existed. And she used to tell me the invisible ones see everything. The powerful think they're alone when we're in the room. They drop their masks, say things they'd never say otherwise. And you learn to watch. I learned that the truth is always there. You just have to be willing to look. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. I've been invisible my whole life, Grace continued. People look through me, not at me. For a long time I hated it. Felt like I didn't matter. She paused. But now I think maybe that's my gift. Being the one no one notices. The one who sees what others miss. Jonathan squeezed her hand. You matter, Grace. More than you know. She didn't trust herself to speak. When I get out of here, Jonathan said, things are going to be different. The company, the house, all of it. I'm not going back to the life I had before. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I know I want you to be part of it. Not as a maid, not as an employee. He met her eyes. As family. There was that word again. Family. You barely know me, Grace said. I know enough. I know you're brave. I know you're honest. I know you'd die to protect my daughter. Jonathan smiled weakly. That's more than I can say about most people I've known for decades. Grace looked at their joined hands. His skin pale and fragile. Hers dark and strong. I don't know how to be family, she admitted. I've been alone for so long. We'll figure it out together. Jonathan's eyes were gentle. Lily needs someone steady in her life. Someone who sees her. Really sees her. He paused. And honestly, so do I. Grace felt something shift inside her. A wall she'd built long ago, brick by brick, year by year, it was crumbling. Okay, she said softly. Let's figure it out together. Jonathan smiled. It was weak, exhausted, but real. Okay. 2 weeks later, they arrested Vanessa. Grace heard about it on the news first. A breaking story about a woman wanted for multiple murders, apprehended in Costa Rica while trying to board a yacht. The footage showed her in handcuffs, her hair disheveled, her eyes wild. She didn't look like the polished woman who'd terrorized that house. She looked cornered, desperate, broken. Grace felt nothing. She'd expected satisfaction, relief, maybe even joy. But watching Vanessa being led away, all she felt was empty. "Is that her?" Lily asked, pointing at the screen. Grace turned off the TV quickly. "Yes, sweetheart." She looked scared. "She's going to prison. For a very long time." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Good." Grace looked at her, this 5-year-old who'd been through more than most adults ever experienced. Who'd climbed out a window in the dark to save her father. Who'd faced monsters and survived. "How do you feel?" Grace asked. Lily thought about it. "Safe," she said finally. "I feel safe." That was enough. Jonathan was released from the hospital a week later. They didn't go back to the mansion. They went to a new place, a modest house on the outskirts of the city surrounded by trees and quiet. Jonathan had sold most of his properties, donated half his fortune to charity, stepped back from the company he'd built. "I don't need any of it," he told Grace on their first night in the new house. "Not anymore." Grace stood in the kitchen unpacking boxes while Lily explored her new room upstairs. "Most people would hold on to everything," she said, "after almost losing it all. Most people haven't seen what I've seen." Jonathan leaned against the counter, still thin, still recovering, but stronger every day. "I spent my whole life accumulating. Money, power, status. And in the end, none of it protected me. None of it protected Lily. So you're starting over. In a way, I'm keeping enough to live comfortably to take care of Lily, to take care of you, if you'll let me." He paused. "But the rest? It was just noise. Distractions from what actually matters." Grace stopped unpacking. "And what matters?" Jonathan smiled. "This. Right here. A quiet house. My daughter safe upstairs. Someone I trust standing in my kitchen." He walked toward her slowly. "Family. You keep using that word." "Because I mean it." He stood in front of her now, close enough to touch. "I've had employees, partners, associates. I've had a wife who loved me and a wife who tried to kill me. But I've never had someone who saw me, really saw me without wanting something in return. I didn't do it for—" "I know." Jonathan took her hands. "That's why it means so much." Grace looked at their intertwined fingers. "I don't know how to do this. Any of this." "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out." He tilted his head. "One day at a time." She nodded slowly. "One day at a time." Lily's footsteps thundered down the stairs. She burst into the kitchen grinning. "My room has a window that looks at trees. And there's a bird. I'm going to name him Frederick." Jonathan laughed, a real laugh, full and warm and alive. "Frederick is a very dignified name for a bird." "I know. He looks dignified." Lily grabbed Grace's hand. Come see Frederick." Grace let herself be pulled toward the stairs, glancing back at Jonathan. He was watching them with tears in his eyes. Not sad tears. Something else. Something like hope. The trial came 6 months later. Vanessa was extradited, charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Marcus testified against her, his voice flat and hollow as he described every detail of their plan. Grace took the stand on the 3rd day. The courtroom was packed, reporters, spectators, people who'd followed the story for months. Vanessa sat at the defense table, her eyes locked on Grace the entire time. The prosecutor led Grace through her testimony. The first suspicions, the medicine cabinet, the overheard conversation, the decision to lock Jonathan in the basement. "And why did you take such drastic action?" the prosecutor asked. "Why not simply call the police?" Grace looked at the jury. 12 strangers who would decide Vanessa's fate. Because by the time anyone responded, he'd be dead. They were going to kill him that night. She paused. And then they were going to kill his daughter. A murmur ran through the courtroom. What did you believe would happen if you didn't act? I believed two people would die, a father and his 5-year-old child, and no one would ever know the truth. The defense attorney cross-examined her aggressively, trying to paint her as unstable, obsessed, unreliable. He brought up her mother's mental illness, her employment history, the fact that she'd only worked for the Whitmores for 3 months. Grace answered every question calmly. Isn't it true that you have no medical training? Yes. And yet you diagnosed Mr. Whitmore with poisoning based on observation alone. I didn't diagnose anything. I saw symptoms that matched what I'd learned about slow poisoning. I gathered evidence. I acted on it. You acted by locking your employer in his basement. I acted by saving his life. The attorney smirked. And you expect this jury to believe that a maid, a domestic worker with no special training or education, uncovered a murder plot that fooled everyone else? Grace met his eyes steadily. The invisible ones see everything. People like your client forget we're in the room. She looked at Vanessa when she said it. Vanessa's face went white. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. When the verdict was read, Vanessa didn't scream or cry. She just sat there staring straight ahead as if she'd always known this was how it would end. Grace watched her being led away in handcuffs for the last time. Still nothing. No satisfaction. No closure. Just the knowledge that it was finally over. Outside the courthouse, Jonathan was waiting with Lily. How do you feel? He asked. Grace thought about it. Like I can breathe again. He nodded. Me too. Lily tugged Grace's hand. Can we get ice cream? Daddy said we could if you said yes. Grace laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. Yeah, sweetheart. Let's get ice cream. They walked away from the courthouse together, not as employer and employee, not as victim and savior, as family. The sun was warm on Grace's face. Lily skipped ahead, chattering about flavors and toppings. Jonathan walked beside her close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Grace, he said quietly. Yeah. Thank you for everything. She looked at him. This man who'd nearly lost everything, who'd been betrayed by everyone he trusted, who'd somehow found the strength to start again. You're welcome, she said. And she meant it. The months that followed were quiet, healing, ordinary, in the best possible way. Jonathan continued his recovery, growing stronger every week. He started a foundation in Catherine's name, funding programs for families affected by domestic violence. Grace helped him with the details. She had a gift for seeing what others missed, and it turned out that gift extended beyond detecting danger. Lily started kindergarten in the fall. She made friends easily, her natural brightness undimmed by everything she'd been through. The nightmares stopped completely by October. And Grace. Grace learned what it meant to have a home. It wasn't always easy. There were awkward moments, misunderstandings, times when she still felt like an outsider in a world she didn't quite belong to. But Jonathan was patient. Lily was persistent. And slowly, day by day, Grace stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. One evening, as autumn turned to winter, she sat on the porch watching Lily play in the yard. Jonathan came outside and handed her a cup of tea. She asked me something today, he said, sitting beside her. What? She asked if you could be her mom. Grace's heart stopped. Jonathan, I know it's complicated. I know we haven't. I'm not trying to. He took a breath. She loves you, Grace, and so do I. Grace stared at him. You love me. How could I not? He met her eyes. You saved my daughter's life. You saw the truth when I was blind to it. You stayed when anyone else would have run. He paused. But it's more than that. You're kind. You're brave. You notice things no one else notices. And when I'm with you, I feel like the man I used to be. Before I lost Catherine. Before the world got so complicated. Grace didn't know what to say. Her whole life, she'd been on the outside looking in, watching other people's happiness through windows. never expecting any for herself. "I don't know how to be a mother," she said finally. "You already are one, in every way that matters." Jonathan took her hand. "I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be here, with us, as part of this family we're building." Grace looked at Lily still playing in the yard, still laughing, still alive because of what they'd done together. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." "Yes." She met his eyes, and for the first time, she let herself smile without holding back. "Let's build it together." Jonathan kissed her, then soft, gentle, like a promise. In the yard, Lily looked up and saw them. "Gross!" she shouted, grinning. "Are you going to be all mushy now?" Jonathan laughed. "Probably." "Ew. Can I still have dessert?" "Yes, you can still have dessert." Lily cheered and went back to playing. Grace leaned against Jonathan's shoulder, watching their daughter. Yes, their daughter now, and felt something she'd never felt before. Peace. Real, lasting, unshakable peace. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, watching from the margins, surviving on the edges of other people's stories. But now she was at the center of her own, and it was exactly where she belonged. The years passed the way years do when life is finally good slowly enough to savor quickly enough to surprise. Lily turned 6 in that little house surrounded by trees. Then 7. Then 8. Grace watched her grow taller, braver, more curious about the world with each passing day. The girl who'd climbed out a window in the dark became a child who climbed trees, who asked impossible questions, who faced every challenge with a determination that made Grace's heart swell. Jonathan healed. Not just his body, though that took longer than anyone expected, but something deeper. The haunted look that had lived in his eyes since Catherine's death began to fade. He laughed more easily, worried less obsessively, started trusting again slowly, carefully, one small step at a time. And Grace. Grace learned that family wasn't something you were born into. It was something you built, something you chose. Something that chose you back when you least expected it. On the morning of their first anniversary in the new house, Jonathan found Grace in the kitchen, staring out the window at the yard where Lily was attempting to teach Frederick the bird to fetch. "She knows birds don't fetch right?" Jonathan asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "She knows. She just doesn't care." Grace leaned back against him. "She says Frederick is special." "Frederick is a common sparrow." "Don't let her hear you say that." Jonathan laughed softly. "I wouldn't dare." They stood together watching their daughter through the window. The morning light caught the gold in Lily's hair. Catherine's hair Grace knew, though she'd never met the woman. There were photos throughout the house now, not hidden away but displayed openly. Catherine smiling on her wedding day. Catherine holding newborn Lily. Catherine alive and happy, forever frozen in frames that Lily could see whenever she wanted. "She asked about her again yesterday," Grace said quietly. "About Catherine." Jonathan's arms tightened slightly. What did she want to know? What her favorite color was? What songs she used to sing? Whether she would have liked Frederick? Grace turned to face him. "I didn't know what to say." "You could have told her to ask me." "I know, but she wanted to ask me. I think—" Grace paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think she's trying to figure out how I fit, with her mom's memory, with everything that came before." Jonathan nodded slowly. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that her mom loved purple, that she used to sing off key in the shower and didn't care who heard, and that she absolutely would have loved Frederick because she had a soft spot for underdogs." Grace smiled. "I may have made up that last part." "Actually, you didn't. Catherine had 3 rescue dogs before Lily was born. Gave them all to her sister when the allergies got too bad." Jonathan's eyes were distant, remembering. "She cried for a week. See, I'm getting better at this." Jonathan cupped her face in his hands. "You're amazing at this. At all of it. I don't tell you that enough. You tell me every day. Then I'll tell you twice." He kissed her forehead. You're amazing. Lily adores you. I adore you. And Catherine. His voice caught. Catherine would have adored you too. Grace felt tears prick her eyes. You don't know that. I do, because she would have seen what I see. Someone who loves her daughter with everything she has. Someone who protects this family like it's the most important thing in the world. He paused. Because it is. Outside, Lily shrieked with delight. Frederick had hopped onto her outstretched hand. She's going to be impossible now, Grace said, laughing through her tears. Completely impossible, Jonathan agreed. Want to go tell her congratulations? Give her a minute. Let her have this. They watched together as Lily held perfectly still, barely breathing, while a tiny bird sat in her palm. The moment stretched fragile and beautiful. Then Frederick flew away, and Lily jumped up, pumping her fists in triumph. I did it! Did you see? I did it! We saw, Jonathan called through the window. You're officially a bird whisperer. Lily ran toward the house, bursting through the back door with enough energy to power a small city. Grace, did you see Frederick? Trusted me. He sat right in my hand. Grace knelt to meet her at eye level. I saw. You were so patient, so gentle. He knew he was safe with you. Lily beamed. Then her expression shifted, that thoughtful look she got when something bigger was forming in her mind. Grace? Yes, sweetheart. When I grow up, I want to be like you. The words hit Grace like a wave. Like me. Yeah, because you notice things. You're patient, and you're brave. Lily tilted her head. And you saved Daddy. That makes you a hero. Grace didn't know what to say. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full. Jonathan answered for her. She's right, you know. You are a hero. I'm not. You are. Lily grabbed her hand. Heroes don't have to wear capes. Mrs. Patterson said so in school. Heroes are just people who do the right thing when it's really, really hard. She squeezed Grace's fingers. And you did the hardest thing. You saved us. Grace pulled Lily into a hug, holding her close, breathing in the scent of grass and sunshine and childhood. You saved me too, she whispered. Both of you did. The anniversary of that night came every year. Grace and Jonathan never talked about it directly, but they both felt it, a heaviness in the air, a shadow that passed over the house and then moved on. On the third anniversary, Jonathan disappeared for hours. Grace found him standing outside the old mansion. She'd driven there on instinct, some part of her knowing where he'd gone. The house had been sold 2 years earlier to a developer who'd torn it down and built condos. Nothing remained of the structure where everything had nearly ended, just a parking lot and a row of identical units that looked nothing like the home Jonathan had shared with Catherine. He stood at the edge of the lot, staring at the space where the basement door had been. Grace approached quietly, standing beside him without speaking. I come here sometimes, he said after a long silence. I don't know why. I think I do. Yeah. You're looking for something. Grace slipped her hand into his. Closure, maybe. Or just proof that it really happened. Jonathan nodded slowly. Sometimes it feels like a dream. Like I imagined the whole thing. The poison, the basement, Vanessa. He shook his head. 3 years, and I still can't quite believe any of it was real. It was real. I know. But standing here looking at this parking lot, he laughed bitterly. There's nothing left. No evidence, no memorial, just concrete and grass. That's not true. Grace turned him to face her. Lily is evidence. Your evidence. Every morning you wake up, every meal you eat with your daughter, every time you laugh or breathe or live, that's proof. Jonathan's eyes were wet. I almost lost everything. But you didn't. Because of you. Because of us. Grace squeezed his hand. You fought too, Jonathan. In that basement, when you could barely stand, you fought. You convinced Vanessa to tell you about the antidote. You bought time. You didn't give up. I wanted to. When I thought Lily was in danger, when I realized everyone I trusted had betrayed me. His voice broke. I wanted to close my eyes and let it all end. But you didn't. No. He met her gaze. Because of you. Because you made me believe someone was fighting for us, that we weren't alone. They stood together in silence, two people who'd walked through fire and come out the other side. Let's go home, Grace said finally. Jonathan looked at the parking lot one more time. Then he nodded. Yeah, let's go home. They drove back together, leaving the past where it belonged, buried under concrete, erased by time, powerless against the life they'd built. Lily was 10 when she finally asked the question Grace had been dreading. They were sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Jonathan was inside making dinner, his new hobby, since retiring from the company. The smell of garlic and herbs drifted through the open window. Grace. What really happened when I was little, with Vanessa? Grace's stomach tightened. They'd told Lily a simplified version over the years, that Vanessa was a bad person who'd tried to hurt Daddy, that Grace had protected them, that everything was okay now. But Lily was smart, growing up, starting to piece together the fragments she remembered. What do you want to know? Lily pulled her knees to her chest. I remember climbing out the window. I remember running in the dark. I remember being so scared I couldn't breathe. She paused. But I don't remember why. I don't remember what happened before. Grace chose her words carefully. How much has your dad told you? Not much. He changes the subject, gets that look in his eyes. What look? The one where I know he's thinking about something sad, but doesn't want me to see. Lily turned to face her. You get it too sometimes, both of you, and then you look at each other like you're having a conversation without words. Grace smiled despite herself. You notice a lot. I learned from the best. Lily's expression was serious now, older than her years. I want to know, Grace. I think I need to. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she began. Your dad was very sick. Vanessa was making him sick on purpose. Poisoned something that made him weaker and weaker over months. She wanted... Grace hesitated. She wanted to take everything from him. The money, the company. And she saw you as an obstacle. Lily's face went pale. She wanted to hurt me. Yes. Like, kill me. Grace couldn't lie. Not anymore. Yes. Lily was silent. Grace watched her process the information, the way her jaw tightened, the way her hands clenched, the way something shifted behind her eyes. I overheard them talking, Grace continued. Vanessa and Marcus, your dad's friend who was helping her. I heard them planning what they were going to do, and I knew if I didn't act, you'd both be dead by morning. So you locked Daddy in the basement. To protect him, to buy time, to keep him away from them until I could figure out how to save you both. And you sent me out the window. Because you were brave, because I knew you could do it. Because you were the only one who could get help. Grace's voice thickened. You were 5 years old, and you ran through the dark to save your father's life. Lily stared at her hands. I don't feel brave. When I think about that night, I just feel scared. That's what bravery is, sweetheart. Being scared and doing it anyway. Is that how you felt when you locked Daddy in and pushed the dresser against the door? Grace nodded. Terrified. Every second. But you did it. I had to. For you. For your dad. For everyone who ever believed that doing the right thing matters even when it costs you everything. Lily was quiet again. The sunset had faded to purple and gray. Inside, Jonathan called that dinner was ready. Grace. Yes. Thank you for telling me. Lily reached over and took her hand. And thank you for saving us. Grace squeezed back. Thank you for letting me be part of your family. Lily smiled that same bright smile she'd had as a toddler, undimmed by time or trauma. You're not just part of it, she said. You are it. You and Daddy and me. That's what family is now." They went inside together, hand in hand, and sat down to dinner as a family. Jonathan looked at Grace across the table, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. Later, she'd tell him about the conversation, about the questions answered, and the healing begun. For now, they ate together, talked about school and birds, and the new book Lily was reading, laughed at Jonathan's terrible jokes, argued about what movie to watch. Normal, ordinary, perfect. Everything Grace had never known she wanted, given to her by a life she'd never expected to have. Vanessa died in prison 4 years later. Grace read about it in the newspaper, a small article buried in the back pages. Convicted murderer dies in federal custody. Heart failure, the report said. No foul play suspected. She showed the article to Jonathan without speaking. He read it slowly. Then he folded the paper and set it aside. "How do you feel?" Grace asked. "I don't know." He stared at the wall, processing. "I thought I'd feel something. Relief. Satisfaction. Closure. And nothing. Just nothing." He looked at her. "Is that wrong?" "I don't think there's a right or wrong way to feel about something like this. She tried to kill me. She was going to murder my daughter. And now she's dead and I feel—" He shook his head. "Empty." Grace sat beside him, taking his hand. "Maybe that's the closure," she said quietly. "Not a feeling, just an ending. The final period at the end of a very long sentence." Jonathan considered this. "You think it's really over now, completely?" "It's been over for years. This is just the last piece falling into place." Grace squeezed his fingers. "She can't hurt us anymore. She never could, really not, since the night we took back control." "We." Jonathan smiled faintly. "I love how you say that. Like we were partners from the beginning." "Weren't we?" He thought about it. About the maid who'd locked him in his basement to save his life. About the woman who'd raised his daughter, healed his heart, given him a reason to keep living. "Yeah," he said finally. "I guess we were." They didn't tell Lily about Vanessa's death until she was older. Some things could wait. Some things didn't matter as much as the people still standing. The years kept passing. Lily graduated from elementary school, then middle school, then high school. She grew tall and strong and fiercely independent. Her mother's eyes, her father's determination, and something all her own that Grace liked to think she'd contributed. On graduation day, Lily gave a speech. Grace sat in the audience beside Jonathan, watching their daughter stand at the podium in front of hundreds of people. She looked nervous, confident, ready. "I'm supposed to talk about the future," Lily began. "About dreams and ambitions, and all the things we're going to accomplish. But I want to talk about something else first. I want to talk about the people who got us here." She looked at the audience, at her father, at Grace, at the life they'd built together. "When I was 5 years old, the woman I trusted almost destroyed my family. She came into our home wearing a mask of kindness, and beneath it, she was planning to kill my father and then me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Most of them knew the story, it had been in all the papers, but hearing Lily say it out loud was something else entirely. "I survived because someone saw the truth. My nanny, though she's really my mom in every way that matters, saw what no one else could see. She noticed the small things, the details everyone else ignored. And when she realized we were in danger, she didn't hesitate, she didn't wait, she acted." Lily's voice strengthened. "She locked my father in our basement to keep him safe. Then she helped me climb out a window and run through the dark to find help. I was 5 years old and I was terrified. But she told me I could be brave. She told me I could save my daddy. And I believed her." Tears streamed down Grace's face. Jonathan's hand found hers in the darkness. "I'm standing here today because of her, because she refused to look away. Because she understood that doing the right thing sometimes means risking everything, your job, your safety, your life." Lily paused. "Grace Thompson taught me that heroes don't wear capes, they wear aprons. They clean houses and tuck children into bed, and notice when something isn't right. And when it matters most, they fight. She looked directly at Grace. Mom, and yes, I call her Mom because that's what she is. I hope I grow up to be half the person you are. You taught me to pay attention, to trust my instincts, to be brave even when I'm scared. Her voice cracked. You saved my life. You saved my dad's life. And then you gave us something even more precious. You gave us a family again. The audience erupted in applause. Grace couldn't see through her tears. Jonathan pulled her close, holding her as she sobbed against his shoulder. I love you, he whispered. We both love you, more than words can say. After the ceremony, Lily found them in the crowd. Was it too much? She asked nervously. I wasn't sure if I should. Grace grabbed her and hugged her so tight that Lily laughed. It was perfect, Grace managed. You were perfect. I meant every word. I know you did. Grace pulled back to look at her, this young woman, who'd once been a terrified child, in a pink nightgown, running through the dark to save her father. I am so proud of you. So incredibly impossibly proud. Lily grinned. Does this mean I can have my graduation present early? Don't push it. They walked out together laughing, arms linked, father-daughter, and the woman who'd saved them both. That night, after the party wound down and Lily went to bed, Grace stood alone on the back porch. The stars were bright overhead. The same stars that had watched her climb through a window with a 5-year-old. The same stars that had seen her run through the dark, praying she wasn't too late. Jonathan came outside and stood beside her. What are you thinking about? Everything. Grace smiled. The night it happened, the years since. How different my life could have been. Tell me. If I hadn't taken that job, if I hadn't overheard them talking, if I'd been too scared to act. She shook her head. I'd probably be in some other house right now, working for some other family, still invisible, still alone. But you did take the job. You did overhear them. You did act. Jonathan turned to face her. And now you're here, with us. I still can't quite believe it sometimes. Grace looked at him. I was nobody, Jonathan. A maid. The help. Someone people look through, not at. And now? Now you're everything. He pulled her close. To Lily. To me. To this family that wouldn't exist without you. Grace rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong. Steady. Alive. Do you ever think about what might have happened? She asked. If Vanessa had succeeded. Sometimes. Less than I used to. Jonathan stroked her hair. But when I do, I remind myself that she didn't. Because of you. Because of us. Because of us. He tilted her chin up to look at him. Grace, I need you to understand something. I don't just love you because you saved my life. I don't just love you because you protected Lily. I love you because of who you are. The woman who notices everything. Who cares about the small things. Who sees the truth when everyone else is blind. His eyes were intense, serious. You taught me that power doesn't protect you. Money doesn't protect you. Status doesn't protect you. He paused. People do. The ones who see you. The ones who stay. The ones who fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. Grace felt tears threatening again. Jonathan, let me finish. He took her hands. You were invisible once. You felt like nobody. But to me, you're the most important person in the world. You're the one who saved everything that matters. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know how seen you are. How valued. How loved. Grace couldn't speak, so she kissed him instead, long and deep and full of everything she couldn't put into words. When they finally pulled apart, Jonathan was smiling. So, he said, same time next year. What? Standing on the porch, being grateful, reminding each other how lucky we are. Grace laughed. It's a date. They went inside together, turning off lights,
checking locks, doing all the small, ordinary things that made up a life. In the morning, there would be breakfast to make, Lily to see off to college orientation, errands to run, 1,000 mundane tasks that filled the spaces between the extraordinary moments. But tonight, Grace paused at the door to their bedroom and looked back at the house they'd built. Photos on the walls. Lily at every age, Jonathan and Grace on their wedding day, even Catherine still present, still loved. Books stacked on shelves. Toys forgotten in corners from when Lily was small. Evidence of a life lived fully together against all odds.
She thought about her mother, about the invisible ones who see everything, about all the quiet people in quiet jobs who notice what others miss. She thought about a basement door closing, a child climbing through a window, a man fighting to stay alive long enough to see his daughter one more time. And she thought about the truth that had guided her through the darkest night of her life. Power doesn't protect you, people do. Grace smiled, turned off the last light, and went to bed. Outside, the stars watched over a small house at the edge of the city, a house that held no secrets, harbored no betrayals, and stood as proof that even the darkest stories could have bright endings. Somewhere in that house, a father slept peacefully for the first time in years. A daughter dreamed of futures she'd almost never had. And a woman who'd spent her whole life being invisible finally understood what it meant to be seen. This story proves that danger doesn't always come from enemies. It often comes from the people we trust the most. A maid who refused to stay silent. A father who almost lost everything. And a child saved just in time. The ones who save everything are sometimes the ones no one thought to watch. And sometimes that's exactly how it's supposed to be.